So much authorship on screen and off screen, and I feel so grateful for that because I just believe in this story so much. I believe in the characters that Colleen created. I mean, if Colleen has her rights, I'll go anywhere. I'll follow this woman anywhere.
I'll hurt her.
Hi everyone. What happens when a Hollywood superstar feels a project slipping from their control? Today, we're dissecting a story of immense pressure where private text messages and emails allegedly reveal a calculated campaign not just to win a creative battle, but to isolate, discredit, and systematically dismantle the reputation of a collaborator. This is a deep dive into the psychology of influence and the high cost of behind-the-scenes warfare. The pursuit to be credited as a Producers Guild of America, PGA, producer on It Ends With Us, was, by all public accounts, a triumph for Blake Lively. She presented it as a role earned and bestowed. However, a review of private communications suggests the path to that control was far more contentious and strategically navigated. The emerging evidence paints a picture not of a gift, but of a campaign. A pattern becomes clear when analyzing these alleged text exchanges, a specific method of interpersonal influence. It appears to be a cycle of intense validation, often called love bombing, followed by the careful planting of narratives. The allegation is that individuals were told what they wanted to hear regarding their own value and grievances, while simultaneously being fed specific, negative ideas about director Justin Baldoni. These ideas often framed Justin as the source of dysfunction, creating a shared reality among the group that centered him as the problem. A telling example involves texts with co-star Brandon Sklenar. In one exchange, Blake reminds Brandon of a vague, hushed on-set comment Justin allegedly made, a comment Brandon only vaguely remembers. The narrative suggests Blake wasn't just recalling an event, she was actively defining it, reinforcing a memory, and attaching a negative connotation that Justin was always trying to rope everyone into his messiness. This transforms a hazy recollection into a confirmed piece of evidence in a case against Justin's character. The power of suggestion, coming from a lead actor and producer, can subtly reshape a colleague's perception of past events. This pattern extends to Blake's own sworn testimony. She reportedly claimed Justin made an inappropriate comment about her personal wardrobe, specifically a low-cut dress. However, when challenged with video evidence, it allegedly showed she was in full costume for the film at the time. This discrepancy, while a single point, is presented as part of a broader trend where subjective interpretations or misremembered events solidified into concrete accusations. The private texts also reveal a worldview where personal tastes and cultural touchstones became bizarre litmus tests for character. Blake allegedly expressed deep offense that Justin wasn't versed in certain elements of pop culture related to Taylor Swift. This frustration reportedly fueled a desire to fight him for Taylor. To an outsider, this seems perplexing. Not everyone inhabits the same cultural bubble. But within the charged environment, it was framed as a moral failing, a disconnect that further painted Justin as an outsider who didn't respect or understand the social landscape Blake and her circle valued. The dynamics on set are depicted as a minefield of shifting rules, where the same behavior was judged differently depending on who enacted it. A key incident involves co-star Jenny Slate, an actress and comedian known for her candid, often ribald humor. During a rehearsal recorded before the WGA strike, Jenny ad-libbed lines. When she later discovered the rehearsal was recorded, she grew anxious, fearing it could be used as evidence she was scabbing, working outside the guild's strike rules. Blake's texts to Jenny during this crisis are analyzed as a masterclass in reframing. Jenny's legitimate, professional anxiety about the WGA strike is acknowledged but quickly pivoted. Blake allegedly redirected the concern, suggesting the real issue wasn't the ad-libbing, but Justin's behavior, and a separate incident about substandard Airbnb accommodations where Jenny felt treated like a second-rate citizen. The strike worry was leveraged to amplify a personal grievance. This reframing extended to a specific, awkward comment. Jenny, frustrated with her small, family-unfriendly Airbnb, allegedly made an inappropriate joke to producer Jamie Heath about the cramped space being terrible for sex. She later apologized profusely to Blake, especially after learning Blake and Ryan practice a family bed sleeping arrangement. Blake's response is key. She excused Jenny's comment as a subliminal strategy to manipulate a male executive, playing to your audience, while placing the blame on Justin, who had simply laughed along with Jenny's joke. The alleged double standard is stark. Jenny and Blake could engage in sexually charged or objectifying banter, but Justin's agreement with Jenny's own joke was framed as odd, volatile, and desperate. He was criticized for jumping on the joke, despite knowing Blake's family sleeping arrangements, a private detail he was now expected to factor into his real-time social responses. The message being internalized was clear. The problem was never the original comment, but Justin's reaction to it. He could not win, as the goalposts of appropriate behavior were constantly moved to ensure he was at fault. As the battle for the final edit reached a critical bake-off stage, the campaign moved beyond the cast and crew to the upper echelons of Hollywood. Blake and Ryan Reynolds allegedly engaged in a concerted effort to recruit A-list allies whose opinions could pressure the studio, Sony. Their outreach to Matt Damon, Lucy Damon, and Ben Affleck wasn't a simple request to view a cut. It was a curated delivery of a dramatic narrative. The emails and texts were not just invitations, they were elaborate justifications. Blake positioned herself not as an actress seeking a producer's credit, but as a last-minute savior of a doomed project. She painted Justin Baldoni as a singularly incompetent figure, the chaotic clown director with zero experience, no taste, and an enormous ego. The most explosive allegation leveled privately was that he was in a cult and believed himself our century's prophet. This narrative served a precise purpose. It transformed a messy creative disagreement into a clear, morally righteous crusade. She wasn't fighting for control. She was rescuing the film from a dangerous incompetent. She claimed she had to rewrite the script, direct the actors, and guide the cinematographer, all while being shut out of the editing room until Sony desperately gave her just 10 days to assemble a competing cut. This story of heroic, sleep-deprived effort was designed to elicit sympathy and outrage from powerful peers. Ryan Reynolds' role was that of the supportive husband amplifying the intrigue, calling the production legendary Hollywood insanity and joking they'd make a movie about the movie. He added salacious, decontextualized details, like mocking Justin for asking about Blake's post-birth weight for a scene, framing it as body-shaming rather than a logistical, if clumsy, question about safely executing a physical stunt. He even referenced Justin having low bone density as a punchline, turning a medical condition into a sign of weakness or deceit. The Damon's responses, Lucy's, what the actual F*******, and Matt's joke about his own company being a really nice cult, show how effectively the narrative was received. They were not just watching a film, they were being enrolled in a personal drama. The subtext of the outreach was about building social capital and applying indirect pressure on Sony. If respected figures like Matt Damon endorsed Blake's cut, it would be harder for the studio to dismiss it. Despite this formidable full-court press of celebrity persuasion, the objective data from test screenings delivered a harsh verdict. Sony executive Josh Greenstein reportedly informed Blake that her cut had performed considerably worse than Justin's, with audiences finding it confusing. This was the moment of truth in the bake-off. The numbers were not on her side. Blake's alleged response reveals a shift from persuasion to defiance. She immediately cited a powerful ally, author Colleen Hoover. Blake claimed Colleen was adamant, declaring she would much rather have your cut exactly as is be released than his cut, even with the lower numbers. This moved the argument from empirical data to subjective quality and authorial intent. Blake and Colleen were now declaring their cut the final one, framing Justin's higher-scoring version as very young adult, very lifetime, and inferior. They positioned themselves as the arbiters of elevated, more evergreen quality. This was no longer a request. It was an ultimatum wrapped in a threat. The message relayed to Sony was stark. If they did not proceed with Blake's cut, she and Colleen Hoover would refuse to promote the film. For a studio relying on the star's publicity power and the author's connection to the book's massive fanbase, this was a direct threat to the film's commercial potential. The narrative flips here. The alleged savior, once presented as answering Sony's call for help, was now holding the film's marketing hostage to get her way. Sony, according to leaked internal communications, was furious. An executive called Blake's orchestration of drama totally unsavvy and amateur, noting she was playing with fire with borderline abusive language. The studio found itself in a bind, forced to manage a star who, in their view, had brought the controversy all on herself by refusing to listen to advice. In the short term, the ultimatum worked. Blake's cut was selected for release, and the film became a massive box office hit. However, the internal fallout at Sony, as revealed in their private texts, suggests she may have won the battle at the cost of her long-term standing. The post-release internal chatter at Sony is perhaps the most damning evidence of professional collateral damage. Senior executives, including Motion Picture Group CEO Tom Rothman, were reportedly scathing in their assessment. While acknowledging the film's success, Rothman is quoted as saying Blake was bizarrely unhireable right now, comparing the backlash to the earlier treatment of Anne Hathaway and noting she did bring it all on herself. Another executive, Sanford Panitch, reportedly stated bluntly, "She is done for at least for a while. It's cooked." The reasoning was clear. Her actions, making the cast unfollow Justin, excluding him from the premiere, hijacking the edit through threats, violated the old Hollywood code of protect the show. By putting her personal victory above the perceived unity of the production, she allegedly burned bridges not just with the director, but with a major studio's trust. The irony was not lost on them. She had a historic hit but had potentially retired herself from the industry for a period. They speculated it would take a few years and compared it to Eva Mendes' time, a reference to the actress's step back from the spotlight. The consensus was that the spectacular own goal was born of an unwillingness to listen and a belief that her star power made her untouchable. The studio's subsequent public statement of support, vowing to make many more films with her, is framed in this context as a necessary piece of PR damage control, not a reflection of genuine internal sentiment. According to these leaks, the real sentiment was that her conduct had been so damaging to the production ecosystem that she had made herself radioactive, regardless of the box office receipts. So, what is the overarching picture painted by this avalanche of private messages? It alleges a multi-front strategy executed under extreme pressure. Phase 1 was internal persuasion, using a mix of flattery, shared grievance, and strategic gaslighting to align key cast and the author against Justin Baldoni, reframing creative differences as personal betrayals and ethical failings. Phase 2 was external recruitment, leveraging Blake and Ryan's immense social capital to recruit A-list Hollywood validation, carefully crafting a narrative that cast Blake as the heroic victim savior and Justin as a cultish incompetent. This was about building a wall of influential opinion to pressure the studio. Phase 3 was the hard ultimatum. When data and persuasion failed, the final play was to wield the ultimate leverage, the threat of sabotaging the film's promotion, to force the studio's hand. It was a high-risk, high-reward move that secured the creative victory. The alleged casualty was more than a professional relationship. It was a fundamental sense of trust. The texts suggest an environment where perception was meticulously managed, where narratives were weaponized, and where allies were cultivated not just through camaraderie, but through the shared identification of a common enemy. The ultimate question posed is one of cost. Did the campaign to control a single film's edit inflict lasting damage on professional reputations and relationships? The Sony internal messages suggest a belief that it did. The story serves as a stark case study in how Hollywood power operates not just in boardrooms, but in text chains, on sound stages, and in the delicate, often brutal, psychology of collaboration under the blinding spotlight of a major franchise. This, according to the documents, is just one layer. The next chapter involves Ryan Reynolds' own scramble for backing after alienating the studio and the revealing texts with their agency, WME. But based on what we've seen so far, what do you think was the most critical error in judgment? Was there a point where a different choice could have led to a win-win outcome, or was this collision inevitable? Share your perspective in the comments below. If you want to delve deeper into this complex story, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for the ongoing analysis, and hit the bell icon to ensure you don't miss the next installment. Thanks for watching.